Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Our first Wimbledon 2022 Power Rankings is here. We're going to go through, I'm going to do it live with you and give you guys my thoughts as to what I'm going to pick for the top 10 people to look out for at Wimbledon, or top 10 players from 1 to 10, of course, in that order. Number 1 being the person I think is the favorite or the most informed player going into Wimbledon. And of course, I'll give you a breakdown as to why I picked them. I think it's going to be a very difficult one to pick, but an exciting one nonetheless as well. So cannot wait to get into it. Before I do, though, remember to hit that like button, please, if you haven't done so already, and do subscribe if you're new. Also, you can support us even further by becoming a member and hitting that join button. If you are a podcaster, listener, or watcher, do remember to leave a rating or review. 5-star ratings obviously really help us out. Follow and also subscribe as well, depending on the podcast platform you are tuning into. Right. Before we get into it, I want to explain, I guess, the general rules of how I do the power rankings. So lots of different channels and people have different, I guess, criteria for theirs. And I don't think there's any specific right way. It's just the way that I prefer to do things. So the first thing is, of course, the main criteria is current form. Now, for some players, they wouldn't have played on the clay. Sorry, they wouldn't have played on the grass as of yet. So I may look, obviously, at recent results on the clay, as I did, for example, in the first power rankings I did for Roland Garros. I looked at the Sunshine Double in Miami and Indian Wells, even though it's a different surface. I think there's more similarities between that and Roland Garros than, of course, Roland Garros and Wimbledon. But, current form is still current form, depending on the surface, of course. It doesn't necessarily... Of course, surfaces have a massive bearing, but the mentality of someone, the confidence of someone, can increase no matter what the surface is, and switching surface to surface, we know. But of course, as we go through the power rankings and as the weeks go on before Wimbledon, we'll start catering even more and more into specific grass court events and specific grass court performances. So we're going to look at that, of course, as the first criteria. Second one will be past performances at Wimbledon. So mainly looking at it, I guess, from a more recent point of view. Like, I'm not going to go back, 10, 15 years, when, whoever made a quarterfinal or a semi-final, Gilles Simon is, that was the last ever Roland Garros. I don't know if he's playing Wimbledon, but for example, Feliciano Lopez, right? He's gone pretty deep before, but do I think he's going to do anything at Wimbledon? No. So let's just keep it sensible, I guess, which is what I'm going to be doing, hopefully. And then the third one, I guess, is, so I've talked about current form, past performances. And the third one is, I am going to include players that may not participate, as in, like, they're injured, but they're on the list to compete. So that doesn't include Roger Federer, because Roger Federer is not even on the list to compete for Wimbledon, so he's definitely not going to play. He's definitely not going to play. Unless by some miracle his recovery goes double the speed that he's expecting from now until Wimbledon, he won't be playing, because he would have played no matches anyway. So let's be honest. And he already said he wouldn't play it, so I believe him. And he's not on the entry list. So that's an interesting one. Of course, he won't be in there. Big shame, but, it is what it is, I guess. Let's talk about the top player. And I think the top player actually is not that hard to pick. And of course, you're going to say, yeah, really obvious. And of course it is. Novak Djokovic. How can we look away from him? The current reigning Wimbledon champion, of course, has won it multiple times. It's absolutely impossible to look away from him at number one, in terms of being the number one ranked player going into Wimbledon. He won't actually be the number one seed going into Wimbledon, though. He may be, but Medvedev has actually become number one. Of course, he won't be competing, though. Neither will Zverev, I don't think. So that does help Djokovic in terms of seedings, as in 1 and 2, with potentially him and Nadal. But either way, he's not world number one at the moment, as of today anyways. And for him, it's an interesting one. We'll see what he's like. Of course, Queens and Halle have both just started today. He's not playing in either of them. So He may play Mallorca like he did last year, and he only played doubles there last year, if I'm not mistaken. And it was enough. He went into Wimbledon and won playing probably his B level, to be honest with you, and that was enough because there's not many very good grass court players on the men's side because they either haven't had the experience on the surface compared to other surfaces. Like most of the tour is hard court. Most of the tournaments are hard court. I mean, you're always going to play hard court. You get used to it as a player. Even the clay, like there's a big clay court swing at least. For grass, there isn't really that. And one is kind of heavily weather dependent, especially because quite a few of the events, for example, in Europe, like in the UK here, in Germany, for example, in Holland. So there can be like a lot of rained out days in the summer, which isn't helpful. But 2, there's not a huge amount of events anyway. And 3, it's a very short period and window in the calendar where it's a very, very different surface to play on. Very, very different from the clay and hard courts. There are some similarities with slow hard courts to fast clay courts, for example, but with grass, and I know the grass has slowed down slightly. They've made the court slightly slower than they used to be. I mean, they used to be rapid back in the day. They're still pretty quick, right? And obviously the bounce as well, a lot lower, skids on, completely different to any other surface. On top of that as well, I guess in more recent times, Wimbledon not actually rolling out the event in 2020 was not a great thing for the younger players because that's a year of experience they've missed. Whereas someone like I know Matt Djokovic has played there for years and years and years, right? We know that. So I think that's why, and for me, I would say he's actually the biggest favorite at Wimbledon compared to any other tournament that he enters, any other Grand Slam that he enters this year. And I stand by that, to be fair, even the Australian Open, where he's got such a ridiculous record. I just think everyone else is more comfortable on hard courts compared to grass. And Djokovic is a better hard court player than grass court player, but not by that much. And the gap there isn't big enough to give himself more of an advantage on the hard courts compared to grass courts, if that makes sense. So Djokovic, anyway, at number 1. I mean, kind of undisputed number 1, if you want to say, going into the grass court swing. And I would imagine that may not change, but we'll see. We'll see on other people's results and how they get on, but definitely number 1. Now, number 2 is an interesting one. A very interesting one, actually, because looking at this, and I'm just thinking, in what way, and I guess how will the other players play in the grass court swing? And then, of course, you've got someone like a Nadal, where it looks like he's going to play because he is going to compete in Mallorca, as confirmed by his uncle anyway. So it most likely means that he will play unless he gets injured before then. So who do we put number 2? Do we put a Nadal? Do we put Berrettini, for example? He made the final last year, right? He did. He's just won Stuttgart. He won Queens last year. He's playing Queens this week. What do we do? Now, I personally, I think it's tough to look away from Berrettini. And everyone knows that I'm a Nadal fan, and I absolutely love Nadal. And I think if we're looking at it from an eye test, and I guess common sense, you would say, well, Nadal's probably the second favorite. If we're looking at it from a more form-based and kind of recent form at Wimbledon basis, then I think you had to pick Berrettini. And Nadal didn't play Wimbledon last year. He didn't. But there's no guarantee he would have made the final. Berrettini has made the final. Now, he's got the results to back it up as of late. Nadal, of course, didn't play 2020 because there was no tournament, so he wouldn't have played Wimbledon in 3 years. Now, that's not to say that he won't play well on the surface. He's won Wimbledon twice, so he's going to be incredible, I would imagine, if he's fit in terms of getting through at least the first few rounds, at least the first week, I would imagine. I don't know how far he'll go. If he does play, we'll see. But obviously, he's got a lot of confidence coming into the tournament, of course, after winning 2 slams. And, he's looking to win the Canada Slam, which is really the first ever opportunity he's ever had to do it because he's never won the first 2 slams of the year in his career. So big opportunities for him. But in terms of, if we're looking at it from a power ranking point of view, I think Berrettini has to be up there. He has to be at number 2, Wimbledon finalist, Queen's champion, just won Stuttgart. He's going into Queen's as a champion, of course. He's won 3 grass court tournaments in the space of 12 months. I mean, who else are we going to give it to? Berrettini for me. The only question mark, I guess, might be is that he played the Australian Open, of course, and played pretty well. No doubt, made the semi-finals there. And then had a break because of injury. And that was a shame. That was a massive shame because he was playing some really good tennis. And he's now, though, come back at Stuttgart, and good to see him playing. I'm just wondering about his, not necessarily about how well he's going to play, but more about his stamina and match fitness over 5 sets. And I would imagine that he will play at least 1 5-setter if he is to go deep. So we'll see how he fares. But I would imagine he should be okay. He should be okay. Hopefully he stays nice and fit. Number 3, now this is where it gets really difficult because Djokovic and Berrettini, I think, are kind of givens in the sense that they're going to be in your top 3. Who else do you pick? Who else do you pick? There's no Federer. Right, okay, fine. Who in a recent memory has done really well at Wimbledon? That's what I think. Djokovic, Federer, Murray, Nadal. Anyone else? No. Who's made finals? Kevin Anderson, right? Kevin Anderson. Who else? Who else? It's just, it's crazy. I mean, Burdick, like years and years ago, he's not playing anymore. Thomas Burdick, or Burdick even. It's slim pickings. Cilic has, of course, gone deep at Wimbledon before. Could he make a run? Should he be in the power rankings? Where should he be in the power rankings? These are kind of the thoughts that I have because it's really difficult to know. And of course, he made the final. Sorry. He obviously lost last year to Medvedev in 5 sets. Now, that was a pretty disappointing ending. Of course, also played the Wimbledon final against Federer in 2017. So what I have to say is, where does he fare? Now, he'll be in there, no doubt. I think the players that we have to think about are Felix, Cilic, Nadal, Alcaraz. I think that kind of will take up 3 to 7, or 3, 4, 5, 6. It'll take up 3 to 6. And then it's just from 7 down to 10. I have to be honest with you, it's going to be really, really tough. So let's pick number 3. I think it has to be Nadal. It has to be Nadal. 2-time Wimbledon champion. The form he's in. He's just won 2 slams. It doesn't matter about the surface. Let's be honest in terms of whether he's going to be competitive or not. He's won every single slam there is in the world. He's on 22 slams. He's leading the Grand Slam race. He's got ridiculous confidence. Yes, I guess you could say Wimbledon is probably his, well, maybe the Australian Open. Either Australian Open or Wimbledon is his least favorite slam because, one, they historically have been a lot quicker. The ball bounces a lot kind of lower, especially at Wimbledon. Doesn't get as much, I guess, bang for his buck on the huge lasso kind of buggy whip forehand, where of course he's putting massive revs on the ball and he's looking for that ball to kick up. But on the surface at Wimbledon, he doesn't really get as much. It's not as conducive to spin as a clay court, of course, right? So you get more value for hitting flatter through the court. Now, Nadal is able to do that because he's done it at times, especially at the Australian Open. He flattened out the forehand at times when he had to, especially with the backhand as well, which definitely can be kind of flat and powerful. So I think he's also got a good backhand slice. So I think he'll be okay if he plays. The big thing will be the serve, and if he serves well, then he's got a good chance of going deep. So we'll see how he gets on and how he gets on at Mallorca and whether he actually plays, although the signs are that he will. So he's at number 3. Number 4. This is where it gets very interesting because I'm not 100% sure who to pick here. Now, Medvedev has just made a final, but did lose to an unseeded qualifier, Van Rijthoven. So, or Van Rijthoven even, sorry. So, Do I pick Medvedev? Do I pick, someone like Andy Murray? No, I think I'm going to be honest with you. He's going to be in my top 10 after making the final of Stuttgart. Now, he got injured, lost in 3 sets to Berrettini. But I have to say, doesn't get injured, doesn't have that abdominal issue. I think it's a close third set. However, he might also be injured though, because the massive issue he has is that realistically, right? Realistically, we don't know how he's going to hold up over 5 sets. And I think he's showing a good level, but how is he going to be longer term? We'll see. We'll see. But I think at number 4, I'm going to go with someone who has been really good this year. And I think will really kind of highlight how much of an all-court player and generational talent he is. And you guessed it, it's Carlos Alcaraz. Now, what I would say is, yeah, I think Alcaraz for me at 4. Now, you might say, hold on, what are you talking about? Alcaraz, but he didn't do that well at Wimbledon last year, did he? No, he didn't. But he's grown a lot since then. I'm not talking about just size and height. I'm talking about him as a player. So what I would say is that Carlos Alcaraz is someone to look out for. Of course, he's got a great drop shot. We know that. That's kind of by the by. Forget about that. His serve's coming on quite a bit. He's hitting his spots. He's able to, of course, dictate with the forehand, which is massive on the grass. He's got a huge forehand as well. He's able to flatten it out when he needs to, almost Federer-esque. He's able to whip it like a Nadal forehand when he needs to as well. So he's got different variety there, which is great. He's able to hit a forehand slice defensively as well, which will help on the grass. His backhand slice is not bad. It could do with some work, but it is definitely it's serviceable on grass, I would say. Not as attacking and as potent as, say, like a Berrettini backhand slice, but definitely up there. And of course, we know how good the backhand can be when it's on. I think he will like the fact that it's lower bouncing, because I think he struggles at times, sometimes maybe at kind of shoulder height on the backhand side. I guess what we'll see is a real test of that backhand, though, when people slice to that side, because on the grass, it really does skip on. And it'll be a test for him to see how he, I guess, bears with that. And then, of course, the return. Now, the return, I think, has been a little bit off, actually, recently. And I felt like it was a more natural part of his game, but it did let him down a little bit at Roland Garros. Now, he'll need that at Wimbledon because, of course, it's a completely different tournament. You're not expecting loads of breaks. And when you do have opportunities, you need to take them. So that'll be interesting. Of course, he's a good volleyer as well. He's very natural at the net from what I've seen. Doesn't shy away from coming forward as well and transitioning. So that's a good sign, I think, for his chances. Number 5. Who do you go with at number 5? So there's a few players we can go with. I'm going to go with the player that so I'm thinking about. Okay, in my head, I've got Andy Murray, Felix, Cilic, Tsitsipas. If all those players played against each other, who do I think would win the majority of the matches? And the answer to that is actually Andy Murray. In current form, I think he beat Tsitsipas already at Stuttgart. I think he'd beat Cilic. And I think he also beats Felix. Now, that's not to say that would definitely happen, but if we're talking about current form, that's that is exactly how I see it. That's exactly how I see it. Now, I might be hyping him up too much. Maybe I am. And I guess we'll see how he does at Queens, and hopefully he does play Queens, because he obviously had that kind of issue where he was saying about the abdominal issue, and he wasn't sure exactly if he was going to play. In fact, I think he's due to play tomorrow if he is going to be playing, if I'm not mistaken. And Jack Draper comes through Taylor Fritz great fashion. Very good win for him, by the way. So who do we pick? Andy Murray, number 5. He's won Wimbledon twice. Like Rafael Nadal, he loves the surface. He's been gearing up for the grass court swing. He wants to go deep. That's why he took Roland Garros off. He is at 6. He's at 5, sorry, even. At 6 is Marin Cilic. Marin Cilic has made the final at Wimbledon before 2017. He has credits. We know he's got history of making and going deep even at Wimbledon. On top of that, he's played so well at Roland Garros, where I have to say clay is probably his worst surface. Yet he made the semi-finals there. That was an impressive run. Yes, he didn't have to face a huge amount of players, huge amount of, I guess, quality players, although he did face Medvedev, who's a second-seeded player. Now, yes, I get that Medvedev is not as well particularly comfortable on the clay and came into the tournament a little bit cold, but Cilic is still having to play pretty well there, right, to win. Medvedev's a great server and returner, would have made it difficult. Cilic served fantastically well throughout the whole tournament. Came up against an inspired Casper Ruud and almost gassed out a little bit, I think, towards the back end of that match, and maybe because he had a massive kind of life or death 5-setter against Andrei Rublev. So I think he'll take a lot of confidence going into Wimbledon. It's a surface he likes, he prefers to clay. His serve, if he's serving well, he'll get a lot of free points. It's a big serve. Of course, as we know, the forehand was firing beautifully and the backhand's pretty damn solid as well. So I just think if he's able to, easier said than done, but if he's able to limit the amount of kind of silly unforced errors he makes, then I think he will have quite a bit of success. I think he go quite deep. So let's see how he gets on, but he's at 6. 7, I think, is FA. Now, this is, I guess, more based on last year. And again, I didn't mention this. I'm sure a lot of you do know, though. I did actually go to see Wimbledon last year. So I saw, sorry, bless me, yeah. I actually saw Felix against Berrettini in the quarterfinals. And I also saw him I also saw him against, I saw Shapovalov against Khachanov. Shapovalov came through that in 5 sets. I think it was 4 or 5. Felix lost to Berrettini in 4 sets. Very, very good matches. 2 quarterfinals. Really enjoyed it. But Felix has improved a lot since then. He has. The serve is definitely more... it's definitely more potent. He's returning better as well. The forehand's looking good. So I think generally he should have success in the tournament. I would imagine, and he likes the grass. He does. So I think he's gonna do well. I think he's gonna do well. Of course, he lost in the quarterfinals last year, and this year as well, his first tournament in Hertogenbosch. He lost to the eventual champion Van Ritterven, who of course beat Grigspor, Khachanov, Felix, and Medvedev. Ridiculous. And what a run. Maybe he should be my power rankings. But yeah, so Felix made a semi-final. I mean, probably would have expected to have won that match, but still managed to beat Grigspor and Khachanov. Felix beat Grigspor and Khachanov, which are 2 good wins, especially Khachanov, who, again, made the quarterfinals last year. So he's a good grass court player. So I think Felix at 7. Number 8. Number 8. I'm going to go with Kyrgios. You might be thinking right now, and you probably are right to think this, what are you doing, Fazan? How can you have Nick Kyrgios at 8? I'll explain to you why. Again, I saw him play live last year against Ugo Humbert, who was in great form. Of course, he won Halle before coming into Wimbledon, was in great form, and Kyrgios beat him first round. He'd absolutely done 0 throughout the whole year, pretty much, apart from the Australian Open. Took so much time off, came into Wimbledon with barely any match practice and managed to beat Umber. He then faced Felix. He lost to Felix. It was a close match. He took a set off him, if I'm not mistaken, as well. Physically, though, he was done. Physically, he was done. I'm trying to think. I'm pretty sure it was straight after the Umber match because that was a long 5-setter against Umber, and that's why he struggled. So, yeah. Oh, no, sorry. Well, he played Italian in the second round, Majeur. He then played Felix, won the first set. Second set, he lost, and then he had to retire because he won 9-7 in that first round match against Umber. So, look, he is a fantastic talent. We all know that. I don't need to bang on about it. We know exactly what he's about. The biggest issue that he's got is the mental side. But does he have the game for grass? He has a game for pretty much every surface. But does he have the game for grass, especially? Yes. Probably more suited to grass than any other surface, I would say. He's got massive serve. He's aggressive on the return. And his touch and feels great around the net. Of course, great drop shot. Great volleys as well. Just like the forehand's huge, flat. The backhand is flat as well. He gets so much purchase on the grass. He loves it. Let's see. I mean, look, it's not as quick as I think last year he said that it was like clay. The grass, he was like, it's too slow. I mean, look, it is slower than usual, but I think that's a little bit of an exaggeration. So we'll see. We'll see. Number 9. Who do I have at number 9? Now, this might be a little bit left field because in terms of current form, he's not being in great form. But he loves the grass. And it's Shapovalov. In the semi-finals last year, he had a lot of chances against Novak Djokovic in that semi-final. Didn't manage to take any of them. He's a really, really talented player. We know the Canadian, but definitely has some temperament issues on court and just a little bit too erratic at times. But blew Andy Murray away last year. Blew multiple players on the way to the semi-finals. And yeah, I mean, just played some really, really good tennis. He loves the grass. It suits his aggressive style and his game. Let's see how he can get on. And then number 10 is someone who I think deserves to be there because not just because of his ranking, but because of a little bit of a performance he had at Stuttgart. I know he was disappointed to lose to Andy Murray, but there were signs that he's ready to kind of make some leaps on the grass this year. And that was, of course, in that quarterfinal against Andy Murray. Losing the first set 7-6 and then second set 6-3. But that first set, he was serving incredibly well. The first serve percentage was really high, 91% of first serve points won. Forehand was beautiful, like serve +1, just almost unplayable. His slice is improving as well on the backhand side, I have to say. It's still not up to scratch, but it's getting there. He likes to serve and volley. The only issue he has with the ball toss, I think he's improving on that, but it's not in front of him really, so he's not able to, I guess, transition to the net as quickly as he'd like on the follow-through after serving because the way that he lands is very much like, basically the way he's landing is in such a way that he lands and then he needs to then take another step to then move forward to the net. I know a lot of people have said it as well, so let's see whether he's able to rectify that. And I think I didn't look that closely at him, to be fair, at Stuttgart, but I know he's had that issue for a while, and that's why a lot of people said he'd struggle maybe to serve and volley effectively on the grass, where the return will come whizzing past you if you're not quick enough to transition. He's a very, very fit player. Of course, has great kind of stamina and athleticism, but it's just whether he's able to get there quick enough. And if he does, he's a good volleyer at the net, likes coming forward, doesn't shy away from it. The biggest thing for him will be the stern examination of his backhand, where on the grass, it's lower bouncing. He doesn't like it. He prefers the ball for example, on the clay where it's revving up shoulder height on his backhand. Even though it's a one-hander, he likes that. He doesn't, I wouldn't necessarily say he likes it, but he likes it a lot more than it being at his ankles. That's what I would say. So let's see how he gets on. Of course, the serve as well, massive weapon, as I mentioned. The return will be, I mean, that might get found out quite badly at Wimbledon. He'll need to really work on the block return in the next couple of weeks, especially on the backhand side, to just at least get into the rally. Let's see. He defends well on the forehand side as well. Of course, he's just not going to be able to hit as many forehands though as he does on the clay. So it's an interesting proposition. He definitely has the tools. It's just whether he can, I guess, execute the way that he would like. So we'll see. Anyways, that's all from me. Thank you very much, guys, for tuning in. Really do appreciate it. So I'll quickly go through my top 10 for those who are listening or watching on podcast platforms and you can't see the screen. Number 1, Djokovic. Number 2, Berrettini. Number 3, Nadal. Number 4, Alcaraz. Number 5, Murray. Number 6, Cilic. Number 7, Felix Auger-Aliassime. Number 8, Kyrgios. Number 9, Shapovalov. And number 10, Tsitsipas. So that's my top 10 players. Honorable mentions as well to someone like a Cam Norrie, of course. Catch as well made the quarterfinals last year. He might be dangerous on the grass as well. Of course, these power rankings will change week on week before Wimbledon, so keep an eye out for the next video as well. I'm trying to think of anyone else. Have I missed? I mean, Hatchinov, I guess maybe made the quarterfinals, but do I really think he's going to... Is he a threat? Potentially. Is he a threat to make the semi-finals? Probably not. Yeah, Ugaromba, maybe. I mean, just really depends on whether he suddenly rekindles some form, but he could play on grass, just he's fallen off a cliff, really. So let's see. Anyway, of course, Hala's got Medvedev, who unfortunately will be playing, but Tsitsipas is there, Felix is there, Kyrgios is there. At Queens, Murray, Berrettini, and Cilic are all playing. Shapovalov is at... Where is Shapovalov? He's at Hala as well, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, Alcaraz taking some time off. He was supposed to play Queens, which I'm really disappointed about because he's pulled out because of injury, and I'm going to the semi-finals. And I was imagining he'd probably make the semi-finals there. So, but not to be. But yeah, it is what it is. Anyways, sorry, Shapovalov's playing at Queens as well. So, yeah, that's half and half, really, of my top 10. Great. Thanks very much, guys. Stay safe and well, and we'll see you in the next video.